Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hajicek. And welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hajicek. Another week has come, another week has gone. Of course, it is almost Halloween. We're almost to that middle point now. I hate to date these podcasts, but I'll do this one because you're listening October 13th, 2021, and we're rolling up on Halloween very quickly, and evidently winter as well, because just west of us got nailed with what some have said is like 2 feet of snow. So that could be coming our way.
It's coming.
Eventually, yeah. Yeah, eventually. But, you know, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, they've all had their snow already.
You can quit. We don't need to talk about it.
And so that's coming. That is coming.
Stop.
But, yeah.
Last week was beautiful.
How quickly a week can change things.
Yes.
This time of year.
Yeah. We've had snowstorms with like 2-3 feet of snow.
We have. Do you remember now the snowstorm of 1991?
Yes, because I had a TV interview I had to go do at the University of Minnesota with Dr. Rettig, who is the raptor doctor. And
sure.
I called him up and I'm thinking, oh, for sure he's going to cancel, right?
Yeah.
I call him up and his name's Neil. I go, Neil, you still want to do that interview? He goes, heck yeah. And so I had to call the guy with a monster truck. Literally,
to get you there.
Giant monster trucks.
Yeah.
To pick me up and take me there. And we made it. He was on time. He had some giant 4-wheel drive truck. And
for people that are listening going, what? We talked about 1991. 1991, that was a record year. It was the single biggest snow event for us in a very, very long time. I want to say it was like a once-in-a-century storm.
Yeah.
And we had that. And there was a movie made about it, not necessarily our area, but the movie The Perfect Storm was made about that same system that came through here first. And then it hit the East Coast.
What makes you think that?
It's true. It's true. Look it up in your history books.
I'm going to. I got
look that up. So
okay, so
it was great.
I want to do a new thing.
You do. You might want to tell me before you do these new things in advance before you do these new things.
I'm telling you real time.
Oh, that's always the best, isn't it? Not really.
Well, that way you can't say no.
Oh, I can still say no, Doug.
Well, okay. Anyhow, I want to do weird speed news. Just speed right through this shit. Don't even.
Right. Well, isn't that what we kind of already do?
You know, people skim through the headlines.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, all I'm going to do is read the headline.
Well, it's on you then, because I had no idea about this.
Then I'm going to kind of a little bit sort of make up the facts as I go. To go along with the weird news.
Alternative facts? You're going to make them up as you go? Like just
No. I might have read like one line in the article. Just one. Okay. We'll just see how this works.
Sure.
Could be the new thing.
It could be the new thing.
Weird.
It could be.
Yeah, not news, not weird news that's speedy, just weird speed news. Okay.
No, gotcha.
So, so a lady in, I don't even know, I don't remember. I think it was Kentucky, had a meteorite literally land on her pillow, missed her head by inches.
I
It
heard
was the
this
size of a
story.
melon. Think about that. Think about laying in bed.
Right?
All's good. You're reading a book. Blah, blah, blah. Your cat's sitting on your lap or whatever you do. And all of a sudden you're covered with debris,
Yeah.
shrapnel. And then you look and there's a rock on your pillow.
It rips through her house. There's a rock on her pillow, inches away from hitting her. I did hear this story. I did read this story.
You did not.
I did, because at first they investigated whether or not there was some blasting going on, because not far from her was some road work.
Oh, she called 911.
And she called 911, but then through investigating, they found out it was a meteor of all things. Talk about luck.
Yeah.
To just be missed.
Speed news. We can't talk about it anymore.
Okay, go.
Okay, the next one. 5 people were killed in Norway with a bow and arrow. Enough said.
Enough said. That's it. Just as 5 people
Some
killed
guys run
Norway.
around shooting people with a bow and arrow. Well, they outlawed guns. Okay, enough said. Gas shortages. Because I have a lot of friends in England, and I talk to people in the UK constantly.
Sure.
And they have no gas. They're running out of food. The trucks aren't delivering anything. And so I ask them, I said, what's the real story? So I read this headline, right?
Yeah.
Ask them, what's the real story? And they go, well, the DMV is not renewing any of the truckers' licenses. And I'm thinking, self-inflicted. Enough said. Let's move on.
What?
Hey, we're having the same problem here with our ports in California. You mean to tell me you can't unload ships? Give me a break. Talking about short.
Sorry. Just the way you said it.
What?
They suck. Enough said. Move on.
Anyhow, we've got 155 ships in the ports just waiting to unload, right?
Yeah.
The package that your aunt sent you for your birthday is still on the ship, guaranteed.
Only if she shipped it from overseas.
Well, that's true. Didn't she ship it from?
No.
She didn't ship it from China?
No, she did not. She maybe shipped it from
All right,
Coon
enough said.
Rapids.
That's enough. That's it. I cut it off.
And that's it. You cut it off right there. No, don't talk. Okay.
A British farmer planting his barley crop videotaped a white wallaby.
Wow.
See, that's it. That's the end of it. We don't have to talk about it. Just wow. Exactly.
That's it.
Oh, the only thing I can add to that is
No, that's it.
kangaroo sightings have happened all over the U.S. too.
Okay.
I even talked to a policeman.
Okay.
I talked to a policeman in my hometown that him and his partner saw a damn kangaroo one day.
Huh.
Go for it.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
600-pound leatherback turtle rescued from Massachusetts mudflat.
Nah,
That's enough.
that's enough. We don't need to talk about that one. Okay. You remember we were talking about Dougville, what I would do if I won the lottery? You know, $700 million.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yep.
I could afford it now. They don't even need to win the lottery. Tennessee town up for sale. Full town. I can get it for a song.
That is true. That is true.
$725,000. I'll sell my home and everything I own and buy a town.
And it'd be Dougville. And
Dougville.
you can make up your own.
Well, I could be mayor.
You can be whatever you want.
Be the city council. I could be everything.
Yeah. Huh.
Oh my God.
Here's one for you. Surgical castration still awaits first inmate to volunteer.
Surgical?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Who's gonna volunteer?
That's enough.
It's enough said. Okay. Do you know what a caracal is?
No.
Well, you might find out.
If you stay with it long enough.
One escaped in Michigan, and it's heading your way, dude.
It's heading my way?
It's heading your way.
Oh.
And speaking of Michigan, my son is listening live tonight, and I want to say hello to Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Because he lives in Michigan.
I don't think I've met Josh yet. I've met the rest of your children, but not Josh.
Yeah, he's smart. He's PhD and all that.
Oh, very cool.
But
very cool.
I want to say hi and love you, Josh. And that caracal might wander into his backyard.
That's true.
Yeah.
A nuclear explosion would be a disaster.
You notice how you didn't even ask me what it was? You don't even know.
I don't even care. What is it? What is a caracal?
Well, how could you not care about something named a caracal?
Because this is speed headlines. This is not explanation headlines.
Through it. Okay, I got to hurry up. Okay, caracal is a African exotic cat. It's exotic when it comes here. Over there, they're just normal. They're like a lynx, kind of between a lynx and a cougar, right in the middle. They have like big, tall, curled over ears. Anyhow, I'm just saying it. You might see it. Okay,
I got one for you.
Okay.
China may be using sea to hide submarines.
Sea to hide submarines.
China may be using the sea to hide submarines.
Well, yeah, that's kind of obvious. Enough said.
Enough said.
Oh my God. Okay, there was a huge blue fireball seen in multiple states, recorded by many people with like ring, what is it, ding doorbells or ring doorbells? And things like that, surveillance cameras. And it is pretty cool. I do recommend you check it out because it is bright blue.
I will. Fish on drugs are more likely to drop out of school, study says.
Okay, this is like, you should have saved these for like April Fool's Day.
Because they're actual headlines. Car hits boy, car damaged.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
What news
Museum
are you
full
reading?
of history.
News for the week mind.
It's funny news.
Oh my God!
It's funny news. Here's one. Here's one museum full of history.
Oh God, that's so dumb.
Drinker threatened man with creamed egg. Enough said.
Say that again.
Drinker threatened man with creamed egg.
Cream what?
Creamed egg.
Oh, creamed egg. It was the way you were saying it. I kept thinking you were saying deg.
No, sorry.
Egg. Speaking of eggs, I successfully cooked eggs.
Wait, this is speed headlines.
I know, but I'm just diverting. My exploding egg story. Okay. And I've been banned from the kitchen, but I snuck and I cooked eggs and bacon today. And I did get supervision from Yvette. She did give me.
Oh, well, at least she supervised.
She reminded me, do not walk away from that bacon.
That is true.
Yes.
Yeah, do not.
So I didn't.
Here's one. Here's a real headline from today.
What?
Homicide victims rarely talk to police.
Yeah, that's real. Okay. All right. I've got one more dumb, weird, fast headline.
Okay.
So a guy has a low tire. So he stops at a gas station.
Yeah.
To pump it up. Buys a lottery ticket. Wins $500,000. And that reminded me of how when I was up in the Arctic, I had to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
Found those footprints, and it changed not only my life, but hundreds of other people.
Hundreds of, yes, you're truly
maybe
the
even millions.
You're truly the, you finding those footprints is truly the thing that helped a lot of people.
Like that, but the low tire. Oh my God, I just got fined, didn't I? Did you hear that? The ding?
Yeah.
So
I
that's
did hear the ding.
So how much is it for a text message that comes in live? It's only $10.
Here's another headline for you. We hate math, says 4 out of 10 Americans.
I think it's higher than that, but whatever.
I get it, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathing oxygen linked to staying alive.
Yeah.
It's one of them.
Okay, you can quit with the those. It's not news. Those are just dumb dad jokes.
No marijuana issue sent to a joint committee.
God. Oh my God. It's so bad.
Get this one. This is another headline from today. Federal agents raid gun shop, find weapons.
I wonder how many people could read that headline in the paper and just not even notice there's something very odd about it.
One more odd one, and then we'll move on from this, because this is your idea, and it's a great idea. Man kills himself and runs away.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that one. Yeah. You know what, though? Okay. There's actually been cases where people have been, they call it suicided.
Suicided?
Where they're like, they're found like out in the yard, but they're like,
sure.
They shot themselves in there, and then they start stabbing themselves, and then they walk.
They start stabbing themselves out of nowhere.
Whatever. And you just
I'm here.
You read the news report and you go, cut it out. Nobody does that.
One-armed man applauds the kindness of strangers.
Just say it again. I didn't even hear you because you're laughing.
One-armed man applauds the kindness of strangers.
I went over my head. You got me. Okay, explain it, Joel. Explain that joke.
A one-armed man cannot applaud the kindness of strangers.
It's kind of like a one-legged guy in an ass-kicking contest.
One arm, so,
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Yep.
Yeah.
It went over my head.
Yeah. So, anyhow, we have a great show lined up tonight.
Yes.
We should really talk about that. And we're having Robert
Kryder
on the show tonight. Robert Kryder. He is a tactical cryptid researcher, adventurer, explorer, specializing in research and recovery of objects and people and all sorts of cool things.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking with him. And very cool guy. I was reading his dossier and what he's done. And including Bigfoot, by the way. So he's got some very interesting ideas on Bigfoot.
Robert can talk circles around you and me, blindfolded and gagged.
I sure hope so.
He's amazing. Oh, he's an amazing storyteller.
Yeah.
And he's smart. He's just a very intelligent person.
Well, I look forward to talking with Robert.
Yeah, he's cool.
The next about 10 minutes-ish at the bottom of the hour. And,
It's 12 minutes, Joel.
You got this great idea for these headlines, and I could go all night.
No, we're not doing it anymore. That's enough said. We can talk about depressing things like... I do want to make an announcement.
Okay.
Okay, so we're nearing Halloween, right?
Yeah.
You just said that. And we just published a book called Alexandria and the Moonlight Caper.
Okay.
It's a great kids book for Halloween. Super good, super wholesome, and I highly recommend it. Not just because we published it and did all the, really cool cover for it.
Yeah.
But it's a good book for kids. So I just wanted to plug that.
Very cool. I'm glad you did.
Kenny Irish is the writer. A great author.
Okay.
Yep.
Check that out.
Yeah.
I definitely would. It'd be great Christmas idea too.
So since we were talking about my son Josh, I got to mention a story about my daughter. That I didn't know I knew some of it, but I didn't really know the detail of it. Well, she got injured in a very freak accident. Where, she had to have a number of surgeries to repair this injury that was severe. Mm-hmm. She's going to be okay. She's all right. But she was sitting on her deck, and she mentioned that a tree above her needed to be trimmed to a friend. Very healthy tree. Not like, one with rotten branches or anything. Just super healthy looking tree. And the moment she said that, one of the biggest branches, which are really more of a trunk, one of the...
Yeah.
Do you still call them branches when they're, 7,
Yeah, I mean, it is still kind of a branch, but yeah.
Well, it's part of the trunk. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, whatever. But it just instantly fell on her.
Oh, my gosh.
And re-broke her arm and hand that had already been broken just previous in another accident, in a bike accident.
Oh, my gosh.
Could you imagine that? Just saying, I think that tree, I should get that trimmed.
And then no sooner than she said it, than it was falling on her.
It was like instant. Wow. The tree just must have been listening. It's my theory.
Man, but at least she's okay.
The tree did not want to get cut and said, okay.
Evidently not.
Revenge.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
It is weird. If you think about all the seconds in a day and all the minutes in a day and all the times you've seen a big giant branch fall off a tree.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that often. And then to have that happen at that precise moment would kind of weird me out mentally. It
would definitely weird me out. And I'm glad that she's okay though, that she's healing and she's fine.
Healing. Yeah, healing. It's kind of, when your hand gets traumatized that much.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Could you imagine walking into a forest and saying, I think we need to trim all these trees? That wouldn't be cool for her.
No, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really bad luck.
It's kind of like the meteorite story.
It is kind of like that story.
She was lucky. She was actually
very lucky.
Missed her by inches.
Yeah. Just a little bit over.
Doesn't it surprise you, Joel, that we're flying through space at 25,000 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And we're on a rock, basically flying through space at 25,000 miles an hour. And there's tons of rocks and crap and who knows what, junk and things from other galaxies and universes and solar systems and our solar system.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Basically, we don't know. And you just kind of wonder every day we make it.
Yeah, so how every day we somehow make it through.
Because it doesn't take that big of an object to cause some major problems.
No, the meteor the size that killed off all the dinosaurs was not that big, really.
Yeah, it was like the size of your house.
Yeah, it wasn't giant. So, as far as meteors go, it wasn't that big, but it was enough to do major damage and change everything.
Well, they think.
Yeah.
It caused that big extinction event, and they think it hit the Yucatan Peninsula somewhere in the...
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that is... Yeah, when you think about it, that's just something that really, in the grand scheme of things, that's insignificant, right?
Yeah.
But we could have another one, like you said, we're hurling through space at 25,000 miles an hour. We're just dumb luck at this point that we have not been hit.
Yes. Well, you remember the one that exploded over Russia, just with the sonic boom that broke everybody's windows?
Mm-hmm.
I still love watching those clips, those live video clips of that, because you think that could happen every day.
Right? We're being pelted with meteors all day, all the time.
They burn up, yeah.
But they burn up in our atmosphere, thank God. But if we didn't have the atmosphere that we do, it'd be, we won't be here. Excuse me.
Are you young?
No, I did. It's been a long day, Doug. It's been a long
God.
day.
Oh, okay. You know how I took $10 on my, fine for my text going off?
Sure.
I forgot to tell you. Yanni's like $30.
No, it's not.
So now
you
owe me 20. See how I turned that around on you?
Oh, gosh. My head hurts. Yes. So anyhow, yeah, we could be hit by meteorites at any time.
Numbers of listeners are writing, because I do
numbers.
I have my phone silenced, but I'm getting texts and things from live, from live listeners.
Sure.
They liked our Enough Said.
Well, it was something different. It was funny. I was better at it than you because I was actually finding funny ones. Come on.
I wasn't trying to be funny.
I'm just saying, entertainment.
Well,
let's give them a few more.
Mine was real news. Yours wasn't.
It is too real news.
No, it was not.
They are real headlines.
Not.
They are real headlines.
It's not, Joel.
It is too.
Not.
It is real headlines.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Definitely.
Let's hear some. Just want to hear the headlines. We can figure out the rest. We don't need the details. No details.
None at all. Just throw it out there, the headlines, and just leave it where it is, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, just the headline. We don't need details.
No, none? Okay.
If the headline's good enough, we'll get all the info we need right
Man wins $1 million lottery jackpot 4 days after wedding.
Figure it out. Simple. He better up that diamond.
He better.
Yep,
He better.
Let's go on. Move on. Come on.
Florida firefighter rescues kitten trapped inside Tesla.
Okay, see, now our imaginations can roam. Was it the Tesla that burned up, or was it some outside fire?
The company Tesla.
Well, there was a fire inside the company?
There was a cat. Firefighters rescue cat trapped inside Tesla.
Oh, I gotcha. See?
Sinkhole in North Carolina neighborhood doubles in size and worries residents.
See, enough said.
Enough said.
That's it. We don't need to know anymore. I'd be worried too. Move on.
Idaho man reclaim Guinness record for balls caught in shaving cream.
Oh my God, this is one of your dumb jokes again.
It's not. It's real. It is real.
Oh my God. Okay, another one, please.
Wallet lost in early 1970s returned to Kansas owner.
Oh yeah. So what good is that going to do him?
Who knows?
Like it's a little late.
Idaho dad uses limousine to help offset school bus shortage.
Enough said.
Enough said.
Why would
there. Done.
If you're reading details on that article, you got too much time on your hands.
A dry cleaning emergency leads man to win a $1 million Powerball jackpot.
So he found it in his pocket or something. What?
Enough said.
We don't need to know. We don't need.
Here's one that might affect you. Kangaroo temporarily escapes Oklahoma Zoo.
See? I told you there were escaped kangaroos running around.
You did say that.
Hey, they've even seen them at the Wisconsin Dells area.
I bet. Georgia family finds python on back porch.
Enough said. Run.
Enough said. Run. Just run. Yeah. Loose cow runs on busy Philadelphia street.
Yeah, definitely enough said if it pooped on the street.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was reading my local news, which I never do. And somebody wrote, it was like on those, what do you call it, the neighborhood post or whatever?
Sure.
Somebody wrote, did somebody lose 2 donkeys? Because they're sure having fun on some road, whatever.
Here's an animal one of enough said headlines. Squirrel fills North Dakota man's pickup truck with 42 gallons of walnuts.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
Well, there you go. Enough said. It's all ready to go. Ready to eat. Roast.
That is a lot of walnuts.
That's one greedy squirrel, let me tell you.
That is a very greedy squirrel.
Those little guys, they never quit moving. Have you ever seen,
No, they never stop.
Just darting around, up, down.
They never stop.
They're like the original ADD patients.
They really are. They're everywhere, and they also destroy a lot of stuff.
No, they don't. What would a squirrel possibly destroy?
Really? Get some in the eaves of your house, and you'll see what they'll destroy.
Well, I mine our metal. I'd like to see them.
Wiring. They love to chew on wiring.
Oh, I did have you're right. I did string lights one time in my deck, and they were red lights, right? And they were off. Well, they must have thought they were little berries, and they chewed every glass.
They chewed every single one of them.
Glass. The squirrels did. And I'm thinking, that probably didn't feel good. And they probably swallowed it. Ugh.
Yep. And then you went to go plug them in, and there was no lights. We got to run to break. We come back. We have Robert Kryder joining us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hajicek. When we left, we're doing your, Enough Said? Is that what you're calling that now, Doug?
Yeah, I think we changed the name from...
Enough Said headlines?
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of fun.
It's where you don't need any details.
Yeah. Much like this show sometimes.
Yeah. Just skim.
Yeah. Got a great guest on tonight, by the way, everyone. Robert Kryder is here with us. He is a tactical cryptid researcher, which is super duper cool. I mean, just saying that is so cool. Adventure explorer, specializing in research and recovery projects of various forms, including ancient treasures, mines, and even Bigfoot. Robert, really, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really cannot wait to talk to you tonight.
Oh, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate the invite. It's my privilege.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking you up, reading kind of what you're about. I mean, you kind of do a lot of this and a lot of that, but it's all super cool. But I guess we'll start at the top, and what makes you want to be a tactical cryptid researcher, and what is that?
Well, I guess, that title I just kind of gained. It's not a self-proclaimed title, and I guess that's just because of the tactics and methodology we apply when doing our field studies. But to answer the first question, there's been an interest since childhood. I've been around some really odd happenings, and a lot of it I've never made public or whatever, but it started at a really, really young age, 4 or 5 years old. Actually coming home from the hospital, we had red lights dancing above the house we had on the mountain, I guess when they came home when I was born, and it just started. But my personal and my remembrance of the odd and the unusual started really, really young. And of course, it was never put down. So as I grew a little older and got into school, I didn't see any of these things popping up in school. And, as the years went on, it was more and more so. My interest and my knowledge on a lot of this went up and up, of course, but then, as well, in contrast, so did the lack of this information being taught anywhere got more and more apparent, and it just created a division. And it was a pretty young age I actually understood this. And, but about 6 years old, I figured, I'm tired of, I already know they're lying because we're already watching this stuff on television by then and whatnot. And then by about 75, about the time I was 10, it really snapped. And I, within search of and some of these real cool shows coming out that were putting this good information, but left so much to question, that eventually I just snapped, at a pretty young age that this is where, the quality is in trying to find out for myself, what the real deal is, and then, popping that out there in front. So it wasn't really a choice as much as I guess it was a destiny.
That's I can relate to that, because sometimes strange finds you. You don't find strange. I mean, weird things happen around you, and you develop more questions. But when you get that little nugget of somewhat of an answer, and they leave it short, that's even worse, because it makes you want to dig that much further. Like In Search Of was great because, you had Leonard Nimoy doing his thing, giving you 3/4 of the story, but leaving out so much to the imagination that it really fueled, I know, like you'd said, and mine too, my lust to want more. I want more information on this.
Right. Well, in those days it was a little different aspect because it wasn't necessarily production, but I guess the mindset as well was that, hey, look, we know there's stuff out there, basically. And that's because they came from the old longer heritage cultural mindset of stories and things being delivered down through the family. And that generation of people were still attached largely to that, but they were, of course, as well, more modernized with a scientific view and a real world view. And of course, the academics and the academia and the I guess the public propensity doesn't follow with either the cultural stories or heritage, folklore, whatever you want to call it, or their sensibilities that there was something odd going on. So those people still had this combination of that, and myself as well. To some degree, that's been lost a little bit. So there's almost an ending generation in there that had both of those still intact within them. And I think that's where part of the fuel for this, what seems like a battle to bring this stuff to the forefront, comes from. Is that moment in time, right there. After that, I don't know how you'd have it, but.
So why don't you tell us, let's get into some of your adventures and some of the experiences that you've had. Let's start with Bigfoot. Obviously, you've been doing this a long time, and you're one of the few people that really, for sure, get out in the field. You're not an armchair researcher. So, and you live in New Mexico, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And why don't you just tell us one of your, one of the fantastic things that's happened to you on one of these adventures that made you believe in Bigfoot?
Oh, well, it started pretty early because of a lot of family tales and things, even though they'll scoff at it when they're in a major group. They all have little knickknacks and tales and stories and things, because we owned quite a bit of property, or my grandfather did, our family did, and a lot of it was unbroken, real high country that they put the first roads in, and so being in northern New Mexico and being around all the older families up there, they've been there since the Spanish occupation, and so of course they've had hundreds of years to culminate tales. So I heard a lot of that. So no single event, I don't think, made me necessarily a believer, because I largely believed in them because I trusted those people and those accounts, And then, but as I grew up, but then when I was 14, I had an experience, where I was on a bike and flew down through this trail and by myself for the first time and made this big jump. And just coming out of that jump, something screamed, and, just an unreal, blood curdling, like a bull in a barrel stuck in there with a woman, and both of them are, having to scream for their life. So, and that happened, and I just knew right from the core of my being what that was that screamed at me. And not at that moment. At that moment, there was no thought process at all. It was just sheer panic and get the hell out of there. But I knew, and that was in Vancouver, Washington. So, and it was in a new housing area right next to the Columbia River, and adjacent to a creek system too. So, it was, I guess there was activity always around that area, but it was pretty prime. And but that really sank it into monster in the woods type sort of, not in a negative connotation at all, but knowing that they were real and there, and it sinks at home, I guess. I guess that's where it would really start, and that was, like I said, back when I was about 14. Of course, since then, it's culminated into the many dozens of encounters now. So,
was that your closest encounter?
No. We've been feet, just a couple of feet.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So,
why don't you expound on some of those encounters and just what's going through your mind? And I know you're a good tracker and very good outdoorsman. So, I mean, you're definitely a cut above the average, amateur researcher that's out there. So just get into one of these amazing stories, Robert.
Well, I guess probably one of the earlier ones where it started to get close and personal and it kind of brings in the treasure aspect of, we were working on a large treasure site, and we did for years actually. And I stayed there for 8 months in a tent alone, and without ever leaving. I mean, there were some nights that there was other people there and this and that, but I never left the site for a solid 8 months. And most of the time at night, no one else was there on the premises. And it was pretty remote, and there was activity with that. And so by activity, I mean that, a large male who we eventually saw and videoed, and I saw him on numerous occasions. And then, but it started out, him just being curious, I guess, to what we were doing, and not creating a lot of issues for us, more just lurking around, watching us, and things like that, And then I had a couple little encounters where I could tell what it was, and then my crew and all, they scoffed at me. And then, but over time, they all had their own events or encounters, and there was a couple memorable ones. And I'll go through it real quick. I've told this one before. The coming out of a trail one night, and all the guys were following me, and another guy had gone around a different part of the property to get a pickup truck, which he would then return to us on the highway and pick us up. And before we made it out of there, there was a place where it was real dark trees, and we never used flashlights, and we still normally don't. unless we have to. And but there was a trail out of there, and it was real dark, but you can always make out that clarity and that lighter tone in the moonlight or whatever, the starlight, where that trail goes, and we're used to it. So, and on that night we got about halfway through, and I was looking forward, expecting to see it lighten up, and it never did, and it just stayed dark. And then I realized there was light at the bottom, and something was standing blocking the path in front of us, and whatever it was probably 15 feet in front of us, and but it blocked the entire frontal portion, just the entire thing. And so we waited, and that was really memorable because I got to watch it shift to its side, and I didn't even say anything to the guys because, for one, of the ridicule and this and that, and then two, that there was no sense in concerning them because I knew they would just freak. And so we walked on out. It moved to the side. It stopped, and I had to just ignore it and act tough, even though I was scared to death. But you can't show that in front of your men. You just cannot show that. So I'm supposed to be team leader and whatnot. So that gives you the strength, just push forward. So I pushed forward. We went on out, and I thought, okay, cool, we're past that. But when we came out, I don't know if it was the same one or if it was I think it was the same one, but he had moved all the way around, flanked us, come all the way around in front of us, and was knelt over outside the trees next to the guardrail right against the highway. And we were right next to a bridge because we had been paralleling a river bottom. And so he's in the moonlight, and it looked like a kind of a shrub tree or something about 6 or 8 feet high. And it was wider on the top, narrower on the bottom. But, of course, I know there's nothing there. We walk out that way all the time. There's nothing by the guardrail on the frontage there. And so I stopped. And, of course, then the other guys could see around me, and they saw it. And then it stood up and ran to the left downhill toward the river bottom into the thick stuff. And when it did, it took out a little salt cedar tree probably 4 inches thick that made a pop loud as a shotgun. And then I turned around, and this big guy, Gary, was there, and he was just frozen and just petrified white. And he wouldn't even move. And he was going, "Hey, Bubba, hey, Bubba." And, well, that was after a few minutes. He wouldn't talk at first, and because he had seen exactly what I had seen. And that was about 30 feet from us. So that was really, really uncomfortably close. And I mean, Jerry stayed in shock for 30 minutes. He didn't finish his sentence until we actually got back to the house, Jeez. And at that time, then he finally got it out. He said, "Hey, Bubba, that first break would have taken me out." And that's what he tried to say a few minutes after spotting, the animal right in front of us. And so, but eventually we named him Harry, and he was around a lot. And then in 95, we were on a different part of that river system and ran into him, and I got a video of that, and it's pretty poor. It was at about a half mile with real early digital high zoom cameras, and of course 1995 most people didn't have them yet, and so it's pretty shaky, and at 170 zoom, only 10 power zoom, so it gets pretty pixelated. But we managed to. I was doing a video enhancement at that time for a private company, and we were doing where these trucks would do drive-offs on large fuel bills, and then in order to catch them, you'd have to, pull off their name or their face out of the truck in the computer in the footage. And in those days, all the footage was horrible. And so we had some really nifty software that was declassified by the CIA called Snappy. And as soon as it got commercial, we got it. And I was using that, and I even got a couple of prosecutions and everything. So my work was trusted in court. And so I brought that video in, and I was always skeptical about the video. And until we threw it through the software. And then, of course, I could map the depth to what I was seeing with that software. And we could see fingers, genitalia, the eyes, the lips, and everything, and then map the movement. What little movement there was, we could map that movement. And then did a size estimate. And then we managed to revisit the site. And it took about 2 weeks. The landowners really flipped out. For one, we weren't supposed to be there at all. I'll admit that. And so we had to approach them and say, "Hey, look, we trespassed across your land, going somewhere else, and we saw this thing." But it took a couple of weeks to get us back out there. And then we took a look, and I found big impressions. But that hard pack clay, it's like the Badlands country out there, kind of. So it's extremely hard. And there was impressions. I couldn't dent the surface whatsoever, even jumping up and down. But there was impressions there, and they were pretty big. But what was unique was when I stood where the impressions were looking over the hill, I could just barely see over the hill down to where we were. And you might have seen my chin, but I could see the subject's genitalia. So, and then when we mapped that out, he came out somewhere around 11 or 12 foot. And so he's a big boy. But he never was, that one never was aggressive. You know, he was real cool. So,
my gosh, did your heart sink though once you found out how tall and big this thing was and how close you were to it?
Well, really not. Probably when my heart sank was when we looked at it in the software. That's when I like to fell over, because my God, look, it really was what we were trying to tell ourselves it wasn't. You know, even though I think we both knew. I mean, the guy that was with me yelled Bigfoot. He's just a rancher kid and had no clue about any of this. And it was a long way away, but it was apparent, you know, against the skyline. So, like I said, we've had the video up for years, and it's not the greatest video because it's shaky, and you know, a lot of people bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they also have to understand the time and the technology when it was taken too, like you were saying. So I mean, you know, it's just the way it was. That was such the times, you know. And were there any aggressive Bigfoot? I mean, you know, you said that one wasn't aggressive. And what were they doing? What would they do to be aggressive?
Well, we've had one out in that region and that is another one that's known as the barred monster, actually. I mean, all the people that live in that valley, nobody will say a word about it. Every single one of them will deny anything they've ever heard anything. But then when you're hanging out with them, whatever, they all start telling you their old family stories, and you know, across the board. I mean, just so many different people. And so, but one was called the barred monster, and that one actually occupies what we figured was a whole corner of a mesa type situation. It's called the Cap Rock. It's the Llano Escudado. It's the largest mesa in the world or whatever. So this one large corner or turn of it, that he's on that whole side, and we figured that out. And he's hyper aggressive. He's really bad. So by aggression, I mean, you know, him just yelling and screaming, but broad daylight. You know, I was digging out a fossil in the Badlands there. There's no cover at all. There's no cover, but there is undulating hills and things like a brain where it's highly eroded, but there's no foliage cover, I should say, boulders or anything like that. And he still managed to ghost us within a couple of 100 feet probably without us ever seeing him, screaming so loud it would just rattle you. Where during the scream you couldn't breathe because your chest is vibrating basically.
Gosh.
Yeah, he screamed 18 times in 45 minutes. And then when we left that area, actually we left, it was going to be dark before we hit the car because we were about 3 miles from the car. And so the sun was still cracking a little bit when we bolted, and about 1.5 miles back, it was dark, and we're walking, but we're moving pretty good. And all of a sudden it screamed behind us at pretty close range in the dark. And we realized, my God, it followed us this 1.5 miles back toward the car. And then it got really, really scary because nothing does that that's not, you know, keyed on you or focused on you. And the screams were not happy, you know, so.
No. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to ask, have you ever had an encounter where you really felt like you got a ton of new information about these things? Was there one incident or one day where you really felt you made progress in your knowledge?
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Yeah, and a lot of that's more in validation, I guess. So in things you think you know, that, you know, that can always change, especially if you're looking at it with a scientific mind. So, but the things you think you know, it's great to have those validated. And there's been certain times when things have repeated, when we've gone especially to other locations, like when we studied a family unit for so much for so long that everything became very normalized with their behavior to be, you know, even to the point of being predicted and predictable. And so going somewhere completely different and then and then trying to figure that out, and then having it all be the same, even though you're a completely different location, it's still the same stuff. And I think that more so than anything else. And the one that really sank that in was probably the night that we got hit by the rock. I tend to repeat some of these stories that are being interviewed only because they're the best stories, but but there's parts of them, I guess, that come up each time that don't in others. And that night was great, though, because when we rolled in, we did so on invitation of the University of New Mexico, Gallup, by the executive director, was starting a year-long study, and we were the ones brought in to conduct the field research end of it. And when we were just initially brought in, we were parked at a location before we were going to go do our investigations for the university there. They put us on a spot on the San Juan River, and it ended up being a hot spot. I mean, they put us somewhere we could camp, but it's actually a piece of property that's no hunting. It's a custom activity location where they have like frisbee golf courses, and they have other things in there, but it's all by invitation or by lease, so it's very, very exclusive and shut down. And so the night we were in there, though, we got a real heavy action, and excuse me, I think the best thing that popped up probably was one of the smallest, and that's when we originally just first got in there. I was with Jack Carey and J.C. Johnson were also there, and I was talking to Jack, and I said, we should stop at this first little camp area here where they have garbage cans over there. I said, and just check the passage in between what would be the thickest area crossing the river and access to where this little park area was. And because that's where they're going to move in and out if they're going to go check garbage cans. And I figured that, that's going to probably be on the menu. So, but they had parked a couple of young ones there, maybe a toddler and an infant next to the river. And then the adults went up. So we were able to recover scat of the type that was predicted. I told the guys what to look for, what it would look like. And then we actually found that deposit. And that was one of the smallest things in the world. But to me, it was one of the biggest, because before we even stopped, I told them to check and how to check. And I related that to those guys, and they did. And there it was. And so just completely predicted. And then that evening, of course, about 10:30 at night, we got in there about dusk, and about 10:30 at night, we're all in there and established, and we're gathered around our little fire. And across the river out of the thicket, you heard a baby laughing. And then it sounded like a female kind of chuckled with it. But the baby laughed. I mean, just straight up a baby laughter coming out of the woods.
Like a human baby?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yes, buddy. And then like a girl, like a young female or a girl, chuckled just a little bit at the end of it, like laughing at the baby that was laughing, and everybody heard it, and it stopped us, because what we had predicted earlier that we had found was scat from a toddler and an infant. And then you hear an infant cry out of the really thick stuff, I mean, so yeah, that's, or not cry, I mean, but laugh, you hear that infant noise coming out of there. Yeah. So that was probably, I think that's
unnerving though. I mean, Robert, here's the thing. I mean, it's one thing to be in Bigfoot country and you're expecting, screams. Yeah. But then to hear, I mean, that'd be so eerie to be hearing a baby laughing. You see what I'm saying? I mean, you don't expect that, and it would be unnerving.
And it is, but I'll be honest with you, that was so satisfying that it took that away. It was just a magical moment. But what's really eerie and unnerving is when you're in extremely remote country and you hear what sounds like a house cat being made by something too big to be a house cat. When you hear something go meow in the dark 100 feet out, and it's not, it's no cat. Yeah. For a fact that's not a cat. It's not a kitten of a bobcat. It's not it's something mimicking a house cat. Why would that be happening? So that kind of stuff that's the unnerving stuff.
Oh yeah. That would be really unnerving.
Yeah.
Especially gives it, also speaks to their intelligence of mimicry.
Oh yeah. And usually, and I think we gain respect because usually we're not unaware where they are. We're usually largely aware where they are, where they should be. And so usually I don't feel too out of control. But when you're just there and you're observing, you're not there talking and laughing over beers. You're actually there being as quiet as a mouse. Nobody's moving. It's uncomfortable and all that stuff. And then you hear this meow come from, you never heard an approach. You never heard any indication. Nothing picked up anything. And then this thing meows. Then you feel like you're fodder. You know, that's the child moments when you know you're just a kid out there. You're nothing, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel they're toying with you at some points?
All points, just about. Even the aggressive encounters, yeah, they still, I mean, there's always that air of, I know you're nothing to me, skill-wise or fighting-wise or anything else. There's that air is broadcast loudly. I mean, that's something that's always there. And you feel toyed with every interaction because you know their potential. And so if they're not ringing a bell to their true potential, you know you're just being, you know, messed with, basically. Even if it's serious, I don't think they would ever take it, in a sense, serious. I mean, maybe you shot one or you did something horrendous, you know. But
yeah, because I was gonna say, you know, it makes me wonder. Kind of hit me like a lightning bolt. These things are toying with you guys. Is what they're doing. They're not serious. They don't believe that you're a threat at all, really. Especially if they're willing to put near you their infants or their toddlers, it's in close proximity.
And that night we went and did that run. That was one thing that stood out. I mean, that should be gleaned from that encounter for everyone who knows about it, is that there was a large male. So I went in there by myself. Well, after J.C. Johnson, George, and all them had seen the male, he peeked over a log at him. And that put a few of those guys back in their seat. Then I actually went in there by myself and I got infrapounded. I say infrasound, but I got infrapounded. So it's like getting hit by a rolled up piece of carpet by something real big. But I got nailed in there, and it was because, you know, I was alone and there was a big one to my left and there was something smaller to the right. Well, I even say it on the camera. I said, well, I'll go kind of approach this smaller one because it felt safer. And as soon as I turned to the little one, then the big one grunted and pounded me pretty good from about 40 feet. But I crawled in on my belly and I got to see him. And I got it filmed. You can hear him, but the infrared light is lighting up the foliage in front of me. So but to my eyes, I'm looking through that foliage through the moonlight, and I could see his entire silhouette, you know, and he was like 6 foot wide at the shoulders, just really super, super, super massive. And the point I'm making is, when they talk about, you know, playing with you and trusting you around the kids, the interaction we had about an hour after that, where I had Junebug with me and they threw the rock, he was back about 100 feet, 150, 100 foot probably from us, clicking his teeth. And then there was a larger subject, 7 or 8 foot, that was just 8 or 10 feet to my right. And then the one at 60 feet away from us was a juvenile. It was probably 7 foot or something, and 6, 7 foot. It might have been a little bigger, but he was obviously younger because he was the one going up and down. We were watching him spider crawling from this low spot onto the sandy road. He'd go back off, and eventually found himself a rock, and he hit us with the rock. But the thing was the smallest one did that. The medium-sized one was next to us, like close enough to reach out and grab us if it wanted to. But Dad was just sitting on his ass like 100 foot away, clicking his teeth. And then if these two would click their teeth, there was more of them there, but those are the ones we interacted directly with. But what it set into stone is, like we say, they didn't take us serious enough to where the large male did anything about it. The family didn't run off. There were several of them over in this little cluster away from us, and the younger ones were right up with us, messing with us. And you know, upon reviewing the video, we got these little pebbles are coming over our heads and landing on the video. We would just hear stuff in front of us, like 5 feet in front of us, and we'd go, what the hell, you know? But really, when you watch the video, they're right behind our feet throwing rocks, and you can see it arc up. So their hand can't be more than 3 feet behind us, because we're laying down, fully prone on the ground. And, you know, their hands can't be more than 3 or 4 feet behind us, because they're coming at an upward arc and then down and landing. And you can see them on the camera. So, yeah, it's like, but their life, this is what I glean. So, and I understand it. So it makes these encounters to where they're scary, but there's like room in there. And it's that, you know, their whole life is sneaking, and it's strategy, and it's teamwork, their entire life. That's what they do about everything that they do. It doesn't matter if they're picking berries or walking somewhere or what. They're always concerned with what's going on around them. and they always work together. They are, it's a constant intercommunication. So you gain that after a while. So there's almost room in there where you have room. You can gain their respect along with them if you understand kind of that thing. They never stop, I guess. So we could see it as being toyed with, when it's really their full nature is to toy with you and pretend and practice stealth on you and everything else. So we're like a cat toy and a cat. And so the cat can have a lot of aggression and not really tear up its toy because it really doesn't want to hurt its toy, but it's going to practice on its toy. And so it seems like they do it with everything. So no matter what they're doing, they're proving their skill, they're improving their skill. So there's this always, an operational, a tactical aspect to them. I mean, there really is.
Yeah, the young ones are the ones that are toying with you, and the older adults, they stay in the background. And they use you, I guess, for lack of a better term, for training purposes.
Yep, teaching tool. Let them play with. Yep, because they assess the situation obviously early. Because the first one that approached was the big male, and I mean big, really big, and and he was, he spider crawled, fully prone, blah 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 blah, and looked up over this big log. So he obviously assessed everyone, and then the people all moved away, went back to the fire, and then. I went in alone a couple times, this and that. So obviously we were assessed and we weren't a danger. And he was allowing us to be more of a curiosity. But at the same time, he didn't bother stopping his kid from throwing a rock at us. And the rock could have killed one of us. No problem.
Wow.
As hard as he pitched it, absolutely.
Yeah. Had he meant business, there'd be one less of you.
Well, and if Junebug wasn't raising up during the throw, then it would have hit him in the shoulder. And it would have busted his arm. It was a pound and a half to 2 pound rock, and it probably came in at 50-55. And it hit both of us, actually. It striped across Junebug's whole stomach and put a red line on his stomach just going by. And then it hit me. But I was lucky I had gloves and a big super thick jacket, and I was bent over almost catcher style. And it still messed me up pretty good, So.
Yeah. Wow, what a situation to be in.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
I mean, it would almost be not only fascinating, but almost privileged that they're that close and that they feel that comfortable with your group. Instead of totally ignoring you, they're actually interacting with you.
Yeah, I'd say tolerating, anyway.
Yeah.
Because it didn't seem like they were real happy we were there. And they just cat and moused us and totally took advantage of us to make us look stupid, basically. I mean, they really, really did. They had 100% of the advantage. When I stood up, and I got by the rock, I stood up and I said, "Hey, man, that's uncool." I told him, I could throw this rock back at you, and I know it would hurt and this and that. Of course, realistically, no way in hell, because they just stomp our ass. But, as we backed up, I kept the camera facing forward, and we're backing up, and I told you, but don't turn around, don't pull your knife, don't turn around. We're walking backwards, literally. And, you could see eye shine from 3 of them that came out into the road and followed us down the road. So,
are you guys armed with firearms at all, or do you guys not do that?
No, not for Bigfoot. I know.
I was gonna say maybe that's why you are having the interactions, because you don't have the fun. Because not very many people with firearms have interactions with them. It would seem.
Yeah, and I think it's very, to a large degree, it's just as mental as anything else. So you're carrying a firearm, so you present a certain knowledge factor. It's like you almost project a certain atmosphere of yourself into an environment, and So, like if somebody was carrying and forgot they had it in their pack or whatever, I doubt it would mean the same thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I think, you know.
It's the projection of, like the porcupine with its quills out.
So,
yeah,
Rob,
exactly.
Do these things have kind of a common way of ranking each other when they're out, messing with campers or whatever? I mean, who's doing the watching? Who's doing the throwing? Who's doing or does it change? What have you noticed?
Well, I can only assume and go from just kind of a culmination of what I've experienced. And I would say that it varies. So, like one of the raids that we documented of a subject we called George, and the little younger subject underneath him we called Amos, killed some goats. And of course, the landowner was pretty, open and accepting at first, but this stuff tends to scare yourself in deep. And so they really didn't like the reality of this deal. But what we could tell and glean from investigating it and knowing this group for so many years is just George and Amos took off and did something they shouldn't do. And so it kind of describes, and they didn't take anything with them. They left everything there. They didn't take anything except what they could consume at the site. And so it shows that for when they had needs, they couldn't hold out. They couldn't stand the fact that they had their needs, when maybe more adult individuals could, and younger children wouldn't have the choice. So that makes it's kind of logical what they did. They went and they drained 5 goats of blood, and they did it by puncturing the carotid and the femoral artery both. And then you could tell where Amos had tried to kill one and wasn't successful, so he bit it in the head, and that was the only dirty kill. Other than that, all of them were just twisted at the neck, rang. And they'll do that to paralyze them so the heart keeps beating, so then they can just puncture arteries and it pumps the blood dry. So, but what they're doing is, we had just had 5 days of real bad blizzard conditions, and to where I think it was that day we went and actually did the investigation, it had cleared up and was sunny and was 37. So it was below freezing, blizzardy for 5 days, and then right when it stopped that night and calmed down, that's when they hit the goats. And it makes sense, because what you're behind when you've been through something like that is iron and salt for the most part. And so, and native tribes actually do the same things, so it's not out of the question they would do it. But what was interesting is they didn't take anything with them: chickens, turkey, nothing. They got into the eggs a little bit, but they didn't take anything. And they broke a lot of stuff. They tore stuff up getting into everything. And what it told, and then the family from that geographic location is only, we photographed the big female carrying George, only maybe, I would say less than a half mile from that spot. And so the family's right there. I mean, the whole family's in the river bottoms adjacent to these properties. And I just, you glean from what you see that they did something they're not supposed to do, because all these families have a livestock and ranches and stuff up and down there, and most of them never have any kind of problem at all. It's not like the Bigfoots are raiding the properties. No, it's not like that. It's more like Native Americans when the young kids do something stupid they're not supposed to.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do you think that these things operate on most everything they do is based on fear? I mean, are they afraid like a gorilla would be timid and, like pounds in the glass and runs? Are they some personality? I want to hear it.
No, and I can just say, you can actually answer that whole thing with just no. They don't. They're not scared. They don't get scared. So, no, I'm not. No, I can't say they and don't get scared. You can't just put it all into one basket, because kids of anything, any kind of creature will get scared. Often females and lesser subjects, but any of the males that have felt their oats, or the older females, they just don't get scared. You can't make them scared. If you could control the way they react, which is, some people think you can do that. They think you can push them into a location or they don't do that. They'll lay down and let you walk right over them. They don't, you can't spook them into reacting. like you can anything else. If you could, we'd have already caught them on traps. We'd have, we'd already have one. The fact that they can operate and not have any fear. Now, that's not to say they're not sketchy. It's not to say they're not shy, elusive, even hyper elusive, or that they react fast as if it's fear. But generally, what I've seen from our experience is I would just give you an absolute confident no. It's not fear, because they'll double right back on you. When they have the opportunity, you can spook one at 1,000 feet, think it ran off to the mountains. 10 minutes later, it's 100 feet behind you on the other side. Yeah. So there was no fear where he left the area and then felt lucky he got away. He's like, no, I'm going to get out of your sight and I'm going to come back and ghost you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
double back on you. Yeah, exactly. It's like definitely they were tracking you. I mean, you were definitely being tracked, and probably, obviously they're not hunting you like as in the traditional sense of hunting, but they're definitely they're probing you, I guess. Not in the alien way, but just they're trying to figure out who you are, what you're all about. I would imagine for a good portion of the time. And like it said, the sighting of the large one. Now, would you think that sighting was all about fear and controlling the situation when they do allow themselves to be seen? Big ones?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes. I think they'd rather not be seen at all times. But I think that for certain purposes, it pays off to be. Yeah. If like it's similar to sound, and I've trained people for this. Is when I hear something, I might react to it, but I'm going to be looking. You'll watch me within 2 seconds. I'll turn around and look 180 degrees from the sound source, because that's what generally the sound source is. So if I want to take a good look at something, then I have someone else distract it. Then I can just take a good look at it, and reveal myself without being worried about it, because their attention is somewhere else. They do that all the time, and just pretty consistent.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of anyone being attacked, like flat out, full on attacked?
Well, I mean, we've heard of a lot of attacks. Like, have I had someone tell me themselves they were attacked?
Credible where you could say, yeah, that person really ran into something. I mean, because we hear tales all the time about vicious Bigfoot and angry Bigfoot, with shock factor kind of tales. But then when you hear people come to you with their own stories about seeing a Bigfoot and encounters of Bigfoot, I have very few, if any, are actually aggressive or angry or attacking. It's more of a fleeting sight.
Yeah, and there's probably a few reasons that were related to those stories, because I think when it comes to an attack, there's not going to be anyone to tell you the story.
I was going to say, we don't hear from the victims.
Yeah, they're pretty proficient at eliminating that kind of crap. But when it comes to aggression and territorial displays and things like that, they are horrendous. They don't do this thing about, hey, I'm going to beat my chest, squeal at you, show you my teeth, and then run off. They're not into that shit. So, some of the stuff I've like I said, I've related these to public before, but up on the Navajo Res, a horse being ripped in half, a cow having both front legs ripped off of it and stuffed into a metal culvert alive, stuff like that those are displays to present power and threatening fear and danger. And yeah, I'm real. Yes, there's a real presentable danger. So you could certainly consider those aggressive tactics, as well, like knocking a mobile home, ripping an AC unit out of a mobile home, then coming back and knocking it off its foundations, later on, things like that. So
why do they do that, though? I mean, is that just to show people how powerful they are?
Well, we can only assume, but based on the nature from what I've seen, yeah, absolutely. And the males are funny, we actually went up and to the res and responded at one place where a male had been coming up and showing itself. So they had a young girl that was at the granddad's house every once in a while, and across a field toward the river bottoms, this male would come out during the daylight and stand there and let her see him, but nobody else. and scared the living crap out of her. It was probably a quarter mile away, and we actually had to go and track him back to where he stays in order to basically spread a message that, hey man, knock it off. So there's as many, I think the reasons are as diverse as there are individuals.
Sure.
Largely, I mean, and it's because of this. So when we look at them, there's a weights and measure system to the way people view these things. And that weights and measure system usually divides itself on a pretty steep line when it comes to human behavior or animal behavior.
Yeah.
So if we're just going to be frank about it, if we discuss them as an animal, we have a very hard time relating very much of the encounter potential or what the encounter means. We have a very hard time figuring it out. It's not logical. It's all suspicious and mysterious. But if we equate it to a human factor, it suddenly isn't anymore. Especially when we talk about the diversity and the mental aspect of the creatures, which is what we really get to know after the years and years being in deep, is they're people. I mean, it just doesn't matter what species they are or whatever. The fact that it's a primate, it's biped, already means it's human by every classification in anthropology. So there's no way to say it's not human, even if it's an ape. That ape is now human because it's bipedal and it's a primate. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the classification, this is in our own self. So when the more confused we are about it, generally is because we're not on track. When things are on track, they make sense. They're not as mysterious as they are when you're off track. So when we look at the way they act, it's so diverse. It's to the subject, the individual subject. It's like people. But I'll say that for all animals, and I give this comparison frequently. It's like, is a parakeet nice? Sure, some people's parakeets are lovey-dovey. Other people's parakeets will try to rip your fingers off.
That is true. That is true.
And that's a pretty simple life form, but it's an intelligent creature. It's a real intelligent creature. So the more intelligent a creature is, the harder they are to predict, because the more they got going on upstairs, the more they remember, the more they're associating, the more they're attaching emotions to certain situations or memories. So you can tell by the way they are and the diversity they are and the diversity in their approach and their action and reaction and their methodology and their reasoning is you couldn't say they. I mean, it's just like people. You just couldn't. And I think when you look at it, people are the most that way of any species. We're the most unpredictable, untrustworthy for that matter. If a killer whale's a mean killer whale, it's a mean killer whale. If it's a nice one, it's a nice one, whatever. These things you can kind of trust, and you see people trusting the animal kingdom like that a lot. Even with lions and other large predators. But these animals aren't really like that. I'm sure you could have a friend relationship with one, just like any other creature, even a loving relationship where you'd miss each other when you weren't around. But that one's brother or friend or whatever, even raised in the same clan, could just as well just tear you to shreds and never think twice about it.
Yeah, just like you said, just like people, there's a diverse personalities and people and the way they conduct themselves. So what stands to reason to be the same thing in their communities as well. You have the nice ones, and then you have the real ones that could care less, would kill you just as soon as look at you.
Right. And all these viewpoints, I respect everybody's viewpoint, and they're all great. But in the field, viewpoints don't matter anymore. They don't matter. And when you're close, or when you gain the ability to get close frequently, then it matters even less, because the only thing that's really matters out there is the way it is. Not the way we assume it's going to be. That all goes away in about the first 10 seconds of a decent encounter. That's out the window. Now it's whatever happening.
Very, very true. I was kind of curious while you're talking. I mean, you've been in the woods probably more than most people, ever, anywhere. Have you run into other cryptids? Are there any other strange creatures that you've run into?
Alien type entities, or I don't know, those little guys. Run into that. We've had some strange things happen, but nothing like, I've not seen a flying reptile. I haven't seen a raptor.
Dog man.
No, I've not seen a dog man, and I haven't seen anything yet to point me on that trail. I've seen some strange stuff, but not personally. I haven't seen anything to take me down that route yet. Now, even prints. We've even found prints of the little gray guys before. So, that's something I've seen tangible, and of course I've seen them. I've seen tangible evidence of that stuff. I haven't seen tangible evidence of things like a dogman or even a pterodactyl for that matter. Even though I do believe those things are out there. I don't know about the dogman thing. I don't know the whole story on that. I've got my own opinions. And some of those are based on a little deeper understanding of how the secrets are worked and held and played in this world. But yeah, I mean, we've had some really crazy crap happen. I've got a photograph of a true orb. It's a foot in diameter sitting on the ground, casting a shadow from the flash, and, the whole 9 yards. And that comes with the whole story about, being on a track hoe excavating and having this thing bugging me behind my back, and I couldn't see it in the dark, and flipping around with the box camera and just taking a picture with the flash. And, that's what came up on the flash. So we've had entities and messed around with other weird presences and things. I've had UFOs show up at sites. Most of that kind of stuff's all with the treasure stuff. So a lot of these big treasure locations are like that. They're like guarded by everything. It's like,
I was going to ask you, because
absolute focal point for everything for some reason.
I was reading about that and your treasure hunting, and I was going to say, because I've heard others that have kind of done what you've done, but not to your level. But when they get close, the weirder things get. And I was going to ask you that when you get closer, it just, it is almost like there's something guarding that. There is maybe a curse. I guess for lack of a better word, at least some high strangeness going on.
Well, we've had things that were obviously a presence with a conscience. So, and crap like that. And that actually is really, really common with most of your like Jesuit priests, burials and treasure sites and stuff like that. Everything was so ceremonial, so sanctimonious, and so thought of in that manner to those people. I think they just install that from themselves within it. If it's not themselves, just the greedy bastards won't let go and gonna stay there forever. There's something like that. But it's the same thing though. We have orbs and balls of light, or even complete UFOs show up right on top of targets. You got the military sitting there messing with on top of targets, and then you go and start doing the analytical work of the area, and then you run into a Bigfoot watching you, and then there's strange lights or orbs or all this stuff, and why it all ties together or centralizes, who knows? I don't know if it's the location or if it's how that location's been treated for the last 1,000 or more years. Who knows? I know some of it is because, how rugged or remote or secret some locations are. And that's just going to be where everything hangs out that doesn't want to be found. And it's going to be where you put stuff you don't want found. So, yeah, because they don't put the treasures out in the open. Right, yeah. You're going to put it in the most difficult places you can get them, period, yeah.
Yeah, what's the biggest treasure you found?
Historically, probably Cuscurza. And then monetarily, one we did over there south of Santa Fe. There was a couple of them that we've located and didn't do any recovery work. We just imaged them so you could see everything in 3D and did all the analytical work as far as, differentiating between metals and wood and air and all these things in the ground. So that's several large ones, and then there's one in particular we did some heavy excavation on. We did get a lot of recoveries and stuff, and that one we know it was in excess, like in value or weight wise, just in the smelted gold alone was in excess of 150 tons. So the machine we measured that with was an atomic harmonic resonance machine made by a guy named Bob Fitzgerald, and operated by another guy named Don Patterson and Frank Kasser, and we maxed it, and these machines are kind of secret. This technology is we're 40 miles from Los Alamos, and when we turned it on, they called Bob Gerald and said, "Who's got one of your machines over here?" So we're throwing basically electromagnetic fields over 50 miles in diameter, and we're punching deep, and then we do it at the atomic resonant frequency of gold, and then we ring the bell. And all we could do was produce a ring that would equal 150 tons. Yeah, we maxed that off the chart.
Do you get to keep any of the money?
Some stuff, yeah. So I did tons of projects for other people over the years, probably 200 that I didn't. And I came on, I ran usually site consultation. So I break topographical code, or I break coded script. You'll find maps or whatever carved on a rock, or like lettering or whatever, symbols. And then I'll break those, I'll decode that, and then I'll fit that to the topography and figure out what mapping system they're using. Then we'll break it, and then we'll find the entrances. And so I did that kind of work for quite a while on a lot of sites. I've been on some pretty amazing stuff. And what I did, though, doing that, was I gleaned the ability through site after site after site, and then scanning and excavation on their sites, I get to see what works and what doesn't. And so it culminated, so on most of those, no. And there's so many problems once you get involved on the financial side of anything. It's ridiculous. Like 95% of good digs stop because of the financial backers and legal lawyers and this and that start fighting over it before it comes out of the ground. And so I avoided all that for a long time. But sometimes, we've got, the artifacts and stuff I've been able to come out with, I think, probably, top it. We could do a museum on some of the stuff. We like Spanish colonial crap. I think we've got the largest Spanish colonial tool collection in the world, even bigger than anything they've got in Spain.
Because I was gonna, because a lot of people are out there and they go treasure hunting and I'm gonna strike it rich, and it makes you wonder, how does it really work? If you're out there and you're looking and you actually do hit pay dirt, do you get to keep it? I'm sure you answered that. It's a lot murkier than one would think. You just don't find the gold and walk away with the gold. There's quite a bit of X factors involved, and
everyone
a lot of interested parties. Yeah.
Everyone usually assumes it's like, government interference, the federal come take it away, and that's not where the problem lies. Matter of fact, there's legal ways to do all of it. You can recover on Forest Service land. You could probably even recover monument land, and there's still a legal method to pull it off, and it's not that tough to do. So I worked as an advocate for different recovery people, and we even forced the U.S. Forest Service through the Department of Agriculture to create treasure trove permits, because one of the digs we got brought in on to do scanning on, when it came down to it, we were in the office with them, and they said, well, we don't have a permit for recovering treasure on U.S. Forest Service land. No one's ever done it before. We don't have and why not? We don't have a permit. But in their own writ, which you're not supposed to be able to get, which I did, and I showed him, it's your job is to create the permit if it doesn't exist. You consider it developmental science and developmental resource, and you create the permit, and you make a road for us to go in there. And so they created the permits. Of course, now if you're caught treasure hunting, they have a law you're breaking, and they have, the whole thing, which before it didn't exist either. So, but I mean, so it's not, the doors aren't shut like people think. It's legal to go dig stuff up and everything else. The problems always arise when you bring in, too many people as financial backers or whatever, and then they start trying to make decisions, and they want to hold the money back, and then this guy wants to sue that guy, and so it's kind of like, it's like anything else, I guess. It's all fun and games until you find a big one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I would imagine doing these digs is not cheap. These massive excavations you're doing are not cheap. It's a big undertaking. And like you already said, there's investors involved. Whenever you get big money involved, you have big problems are soon to follow. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, the saddest part is, and I've had it happen, is where, you've got, let's say you got $1 million dig budget, and you spend the first third of it doing the first phases, which is proving a site and the whole 9 yards, doing the archaeology, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, instead of going after the target, they start trying to go after the bank account. That kind of stuff. It's just, human nature is really wild. I mean, I've seen, a project worth $20 billion where they fought over the $750,000 until they shut the whole project down. It's still sitting on the ground. Yeah. It's like, what's wrong with you people?
Yeah, right. Right. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Robert, do you have your own theories on who discovered North America and what is here to discover yet? And I mean, you must think about that stuff.
Oh, yeah. The way my mind works, it's kind of like this. Who said it was ever lost?
Exactly.
I mean, really, if you want to pretend this and that and make it controversy, if you want to make every single thing besides the date you say controversy, then you say he discovered it.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
That's all you got to do. Then the controversy, it's all wrapped in controversy. Who discovered it from that point forward? This continent was never lost since it refloated to the surface, man. And so since it popped back up above the water from the last time it was down, which is why they call it Turtle Island, and there's no ancient temples and cities and things all, made of stone and durable ware all over it, is because it wasn't up most of the time. As soon as it was up, it was being walked on, just period, just like that. And, if we go from just an unbiased point of view, let's say we've never been to Earth before. We just showed up and we're going to go look at information. If we go around and start looking at the information, there's nothing that indicates or that tries to say this continent was ever lost. Now, there's a lot to say that this culture didn't know about it until this date, and this culture didn't know about it until this date, or even just this faction within this culture didn't know about it within this date. Then we begin to go, oh, well, it was lost. It's not lost because one guy or group doesn't know about it. It's the same thing as like the mountain gorilla. Every single native around there was never new. Why did it take so long to be discovered? It wasn't discovered. The natives saw them all the time. They weren't discovered just because some British guy walks up and then he sees it. It's like the biggest caves in the world, Long Isle caves, and those in China. Well, it says those were discovered just 20 years ago or something. No. The locals have been using those caves continually, nonstop. It didn't get discovered then. And so it's how we look at it in a relative terminology. I don't believe in North America was ever lost. No, I believe Sumerians and Babylonians were here a couple of thousand years ago. I believe the Phoenicians and the Egyptians were, and we've seen, that's what we do. We've seen their stuff, and nobody else put their stuff here besides them. Sure, the Jesuit priests knew just about everybody's language. They did since the 1100s. Okay, and they wrote script from just about everybody, but it was still written by a Jesuit priest. I mean, when an Egyptian writes Egyptian, when a Phoenician writes Phoenician, how about, let's put it this way, when a Celt didn't know how to read or write, got on a boat on a 3-month journey, learned to read and write Phoenician, but he's writing his language. He's a Celt, and he doesn't write Phoenician in the same way or structure it in the same way because he's not truly literate. What's that look like? And that was most of it. That's most of the propensity of what you see out there. That's why we have this blend, and it's hard to distinguish and determine. But, man, you can see, we've already run into everybody's script. From Ogan to Punic to Nordic to, everybody, Phoenician, Egyptian, Hebrew, Farsi, Libyan, it's all here, so, and I see too many connections that aren't even the popular connections. Some of because what I've seen in person and then got to compare to what I see being found in vicariously from around the world and making those own connections ourselves. But man, there's so much of it that's been found. It's like, it should be non-debatable. Let's put it that way. It should be undebatable that everybody was over here. In 55 BC, Caesar says he burned the Celtic fleet of boats. Okay, and these were ships that they normally never even brought into bays or harbors because they were too big. They kept them out at sea, and then other boats would go and trade with them out at sea. They could even, and Caesar of Rome doesn't give credit to anybody. So according to them, everybody else was defunct. They were the shit dizzy, even if they knew nothing. But he gave a lot of credit to the Celts for their boats. His longest boat was, I believe, 178 feet long, something like that. And he said that he couldn't even reach the deck of a Celtic boat with his on end. So it was over 200 feet to the deck on these boats. What were they doing with them? He burned them in 55 BC. Yeah. Now, so people can't say, oh, the Celts were a bunch of pagans dancing around wearing wolf masks. No, they weren't. These guys were building ships that were in excess of 500, 800 feet long. It was 200 foot to the deck. They're building aircraft carrier-sized vessels, and you don't think they can cross the ocean? Right. They could go. There's not a storm big enough to sink them. They could go anywhere in the world they wanted to, and they did. And so, now we have remnants in North America from the Celts from 800 BC on. That's pretty undebatable unless you want to be ignorant, literally. And then you have a fleet that Rome just, and I mean, why isn't it accepted? Rome said it, and according to most of the Euro doctrine, whatever Rome says is gold, right? So Caesar tells you he burned these boats. That means the boats existed. That means it had to come from somewhere. That means that there was iron and or metallurgy, and there was woodworking of a massive scale, an industrial scale somewhere over there. And then what were they doing with them? They weren't just building them. You couldn't even park them in a bay. I mean, so it just goes to factor. It's like when it comes to talk about discovering North America, we have evidence, clear and present, of about 800 years of just the Celts and all the people that would get on a boat for a job, basically, from the entire region all the way out to the gates of Gibraltar and probably all the way to Ireland. Everybody was coming back and forth. And then, when Rome burned the fleet, because they were sacking everybody's people over there, and then you got all the crews to the boats saying, hey, these are all our people. They make an informed decision to pull these boats in and try to blockade them, and they burn the fleet. Well, what's that do to all the thousands of people that you had been taken over to the other continent that are still there mining and living and doing this stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you just stranded them all, and you stranded them in 55 BC. In our history in North America, they act like they've got it all figured out. I'm telling you, we know less about North America than almost any other continent. And we know almost nothing of the period between really 1250 or even 1150 on. We don't know jack. We know people disappeared. Yeah. But other than that, we don't know really anything. It's all supposition. And so, we're not very...
Have you thought about the the Arctic is so unexplored? I mean, from digging, because it's very difficult to do so. I mean, they're finding tons of artifacts that they were even trading with the natives and the Inuit way before Columbus got here. There was active trade going on, it looks like, just based on hard objects that they're finding.
Yeah, I mean, here in New Mexico, even on straight up state archaeological digs, I got brought in to photograph what is a European pressure smelter that wasn't even used in the 1400s. It was talked about in the 1400s when the guy wrote De Re Metallica, Gregorius or whatever wrote De Re Metallica for the King of France in the 1541, I believe, that it was just rumored and legend, and they knew how they did it, and they had drawings and woodcuts of them, but no one was doing it at that point, of pressure smelting exotic metals. And we didn't find it. It was actually found there in Santa Fe at a dig. We got invited on to record it because they couldn't record it. So the lady knew who we were, basically, because of my archaeologist at the time was doing she went from working with KX to doing straight up work for the state or whatever, and under state contract. And, so that lady who owned the company knew of me and knew of us. And she's like, well, they really don't want to hide this. They hide this archaeology every day. They scrub it, they destroy it. But that's got to make people feel bad. Most people don't get into archaeology to be controlling information. They get into it because they have a true interest, right? So this lady who owned the company called us in to document it. And so we have it in our archives. And they were making a metal called silver net, and that's out of Greek mythology, and that's a composite alloy of iron and copper, and it's only been made twice in history that is actually recorded, and that was by Isaac Newton and by an industrial laboratory in like the late 80s. And they were making that stuff in a pressure smelter outside Santa Fe in the 1200s. And the unique part about it was there was cart tracks there, so they were using carts smelting exotic metals in industrial pressure furnaces here in the New World in in the 1200s. And so the cart tracks got recorded, actually. They weren't supposed to have, but they did.
What's the motivation, Robert, for all the lies that we've been told?
Well, let's put it this way. So when a liar tells a lie, what's the motivation for his second lie?
I guess to cover the first.
Yeah.
Now, you've got how many 100 years of lies? That's pretty tough to swallow all that now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's sad. I mean, it really is, because we know so little. I just think about what our kids are taught. It's just so wrong.
Well, that's why we're actually trying to get a platform in one way or another that's large enough, fast enough, whatever, to start laying it out, because we have enough just in-house, just in our own research, to establish, a tremendous amount of what was going on. Who was here in the 1100s and 1200s, and when the first large native revolt was, which, the natives say Mother Nature even took part in it. And the proof of that is sitting on the archaeological sites. And these are sites that have been done and they've been dug, just they're brushed away and people don't know about them. But we have them, It's the Bureau of Mines in Socorro, New Mexico opened up their entire archive to us and said, you guys come down, we'll even supply the paper, copy every single thing we have. And, they had handwritten notes going back. I mean, it's just every bit of ancient mining and lore and everybody's data, and they've got everything. But the reason they did that is because they know, what are they going to do with it? Because they know what we're being spot against, because a lot of these finds dictate history isn't anything like we're being taught whatsoever. And what it is, they created the story of history long before they knew it, didn't they? I mean, they created the story of history before 90% of the magnificent finds came to light.
Yeah.
And they haven't changed the story. That tells you something by itself. There's no way in hell you could get it right with only about 10% of the information. Okay, it's never been altered. And this is the thing, So as soon as we can somehow get it out now, okay, because of the backdoor stuff and the treasure stuff and the ancient history stuff and the advanced technology stuff, some of this stuff goes right up into national defense. We've been controlled pretty damn hard. And they don't so much like just disconnect our YouTube channel or whatever, but they do everything in the world to prevent it. Like everyone writes me all the time, says, man, I've been removed as your subscriber a dozen times, and it's just over and over and over and over. They do it on all our platforms. The interference is in the ways they can do it that are subtle. And so, because in this manner too, I'm not, making a screaming big deal about all that. And I could waste all my time fighting them, or I could just keep working. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But if you go onto YouTube and you type in KX, Kryder Exploration, it won't show up. And so you can even type the whole word. It won't show in search result until you hit the search. Then it'll show. But you'll never see it before that. And that's the ways they do that. People tell us all the time, man, I've had hell trying to find your page, find your site. And it's like, man, it's right there. It's like pop-ups on the website. No matter how much money we pay or what we do, you can't stop the redirecting from our website. WordPress won't stop it. GoDaddy won't stop it. But you hit on our links or you hit on our donate button or anything like that, and it'll just take you to somewhere else. So these are the subtle manners that they just keep you in consistently. And so I've had a very difficult time trying to conduct the research, format it, quantify it, right, put it together in some form, and as well fight to try to get it out everywhere. It just, there's so much people need to know about. If nothing else, they need to know where the sources for these information, where this information is.
Yeah. It boggles my mind, the motivation behind wanting to stifle the truth. Yeah, I mean, other than because of the lie, but I mean, everybody knows. Come on, anyone with a thinking brain would have to know there's more than what's being told. I mean, it did not start with Christopher Columbus. We know that. The records out there that anyone can dig up can take you there and tell you that. Hell, even the Vikings were here at one point.
Yeah, and I mean all the way into the Midwest. It wasn't even, and the Egyptians were all over the Midwest.
Heck, even in Minnesota, we have the runestone over here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Proving they were here.
Well, I mean, there's caves there in Illinois that are from Alexander the Great. So, and that's what was featured in Scientific American when the guy, shows, they found a gold coffin, gold coins. They show the gold coins and all that kind of crap. I mean, 2,000 pounds of them. Nobody just hoaxed it. Sorry. And it was Alexander the Great. And then there's evidence of ancient copper mining all around the Great Lakes. And then they have monolithic type construction, like Stonehenge type construction underneath the water in Lake Michigan. They have, it's like they were here so long ago and doing so much work. It's the same thing in South America. We talk about Sumerian Babylonian. Man, the word Titicaca isn't even a name from the people that live there. It's the word that's Sumerian. That's Titi means 10, Kaka means mine. Titicaca, tin mine. And the oldest tin mines in the world are all located around Lake Titicaca. And they don't know where the tin came for the Bronze Age. I'll tell you where the tin came from, Lake Titicaca. It's like they were the tin mines of the Babylonians. Now they found Babylonian tools and things that have the Babylonian gods cast into their bronze handles. They're bronze. I mean, it's all self-explanatory. And they can play around and say, oh, the word means cougar. No, it didn't.
What about the ancient alien theories? Where do you stand on that, Robert? Do you think they were forcing us into slavery to mine gold, or do you think any of that's true? Or
I think they were doing whatever it took to get us to mine gold, and a few other things. So even to process people, believe it or not. And then, when we say alien, it's like what we have to assume is alien to our understanding. We don't know if, like the Greys, we don't know. They might have been here before. If they're from Zeta Reticuli, they may have been here and went to Zeta Reticuli from here. We have no clue if they're indigenous to this planet or not. And what we've seen is, at least some of these beings have been here as long as people have been here or longer, and have been messing with the critters above ground the whole damn time. And they're a subterranean race, whatever they do. Of course, if you were an interstellar race or you were a true space race for long enough, you're going to go subterranean anyway, because no matter what orbiting body you get on, if it's a rocky world, you're going to go inside of it because the outside conditions. You can control an interior condition. So it's natural to believe that either way could be assumed, but I see interaction. Now, we've found, this is another thing. I just made this connection for Jerry Willis the other day. We were sitting around, and I showed him. I said, we've got it. We have actually physical traits of this stuff. And that is to where a connection between North America and South America on the ancient alien stuff. So we've found ourselves painted panels of Native American shaman meeting gray aliens. And these came following ancient monuments and coded monumentation and lines from monument to monument and deciphering codes, and then they end up to take you places. And one of the places that one of the guys I trained, Taylor Mayhew, went into and photographed was a panel painted on the wall in red, which there's hardly any painted panels in North America, and it depicts a shaman. And there's actually a Bigfoot on the mountain, which is interesting, and it depicts a shaman, and it shows a perfect gray alien underneath a lightning bolt coming out. And the shaman's got a feathered standard and a shield with a star on it and all this stuff. And then we've, of course, even over here, we've seen this area that I'm in now is prime for all this stuff. But we've got dinosaurs and people on the same glyph with aliens featured on the glyph, with them using a dome-shaped craft to shoot the monsters or the dinosaurs with what looks like energy, like lightning. And we've got that in several panels. And then you have like the Hopi tales of the heroes that slew the monsters so the people could come up on the surface. And that took generations. Well, then you find glyphs of apparently these heroes were flying craft. And it's the same craft. And then when we look at the ancient plates and stuff that are being dug up in Jalisco, Mexico, the real ones, I have two of those, and not just plates, but artifacts. I have two of those artifacts here with me. And they were sent to me by the original finder and the original archaeological group that discovered those stuff. And they were sent to me because of the work we do and to make this connection. So, and these are real. One of them is like the guy at Chichen Itza that's laid on his back on top of the main temple there with the bowl in his chest looking sideways. But it's looking forward, and it's a gray alien with a bowl of turquoise. It's not a bowl for human hearts. And they dated the adhesive at ASU to 9,700 years. So this pre-everybody that was doing the sacrifices and all the crazy shit, the way it started wasn't like that. And it did have alien influence. And then we've got, they have craft that are featured on those plates from Mexico. And then we have the identical craft at a glyph storyline where they show the alien guys, they show the dinosaurs getting shot, and then they show the craft, and it's the same craft with the same lines and the same markings as on those plates in Mexico. Now, no one in the world came and faked these things. They're a Native American glyph panel in the middle of nowhere. And to say that, they faked it in Mexico, well, then they'd have had to gone to this glyph site in the American Southwest and pick that little glyph and put that on their plates. I mean, and then, of course, we have monuments that show.
I'm Alex Honnold, and while I'm usually outside rock climbing, I'm also the host of a new podcast from Rolex and the Washington Post Creative Group called Planet Visionaries. On the 4th episode, out now, I speak with Kirsten Forsberg about protecting an incredible marine creature, the giant manta ray. Check it out.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now.
What appear to be, you'll have a Bigfoot head, you'll have an alien head, and you'll have a Native American head. And then there'll be mines there. And they all over the place. So a lot of these ancient monumented sites we're going to aren't done by Spain, even though the Jesuits knew how to find this stuff. And even earlier people knew how to find it. And we're relocating mining, smelting, doing things out of these ancient hoards that were done way back thousands of years ago. We've got glyph panels that show like the reptoid guys with 3 fingers meeting the standard natives, and then there'll be a mammoth between them. So it's showing the age of this activity. And it's interesting because you have the glyphs and the artifacts down south go 9,500 years, and then you come up here and the glyph panel showing the same entities has a mammoth on it. You know, so there's a connection between mining and especially like turquoise, which is interesting. So let's say that, you know, we know like aluminum. There was an aluminum cup delivered to a king 5,100 years ago. And he said that the gods gave him the process to make it. And then the king killed him. So he would be the only one that had an aluminum cup. Okay, it's 5130, I think was the alloy of aluminum, but it's the same alloy they use in like aircraft wings.
Really?
Yeah, it's identical. Or it's the same alloy they use in a Coke can. Actually, it's the
I was going to say how much technology is. I mean, ancient technology must have. I mean,
and this is what I'm going to get at is the only way you're going to get aluminum is if you take the right type of clay and then use electrolysis to pull out the aluminum. Okay, there's no other way to get it. So you can't smelt it out like other metals you can. So you have to add a rare earth for it to make the metal. So what I'm getting at here is one of the main things that we're mining that was even more important than gold was turquoise. Well, turquoise is anhydrous aluminum. It's actually an aluminum source. And then you start to tie this stuff in together, and you have this time frame of events, and you have it actually like the more advanced alloys and these kind of things were happening way back 8,000, 9,000 years ago. Now, just because it's not sitting everywhere today, but you have to think who in the world got access to all the ancient sites between 1700 and 1880. That's where all the stuff went. You know, that's why did the French king order all the English archaeologists out of Egypt in the 1880s? They were going to kill them all. Just plain and simple, because they were rewriting their history. They literally took everything cool they could get their hands on, and then they rewrote their whole history to be another version of the European history. And that's really the basis for why the French king had to order everybody out of there. They were going to murder them all for doing this crap. Well, we still today are preaching with the idea and the theme they came home with. We're not doing anything according to what's actually found in Egypt. And we just continually are refining things to fit that narrative, erasing everything else. So
it makes you wonder. Well, obviously, it comes down to 2 things: money and power. That's why, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, why they're so afraid of that. That's
why I say on the Bigfoot thing. So people say, well, why in the world would they keep it secret? Okay, well, besides the economic trip, which you could go down so many avenues, you know, I mean, just there's billions of dollars that are in play that could potential losses. And if you just swerve the crowd a little bitty bit, that's one thing. Yeah. And then there's socio-religious. Where's the heck is that thing going to fit in? And then all that crap. But, you know, something that stood out to me more than I've never heard anyone else even talk about it is okay, there's 2 things going on here. There's a huge propensity to say they're not human by people who are scientists in the anthropologic sciences who say it's not human, when modern anthropology absolutely defines any bipedal primate a human. Period, bar none. It's not questionable, but they won't call it a human. Okay, now they're going against every single thing in the world. And if the average person listens to them speak and watches them on every show they've got them on, and these are the real pros, and they're going, no, it's not a human, it's not a human, it's this, it's that. Hey, I'm going to tell you, man, any anthropologist is watching that just laughing and will never take it serious. And then the public is being horribly misled. For one, that the definition of a human isn't what it is. And then two, they're being misled that this person who's a scientist or PhD believes what he's saying, because he doesn't. He already knows. And so it begs to question one thing. Why in the world would this huge effort to continually not just deny, but to distract and mislead people from thinking going down the human road? And I'm going to tell you why. Because if those things are human, period, doesn't say... This doesn't. We don't say Homo sapiens sapien rights, do we? We say human rights, don't we?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Can you go anywhere you want? Can you hop any fence you want to? Can you swim in any pond? Can you do that?
No, you can't.
Okay, because you might do it, right?
You could physically do it, but legally you cannot.
Right. Yeah. How long is it going to be before you're gathered up? Right now, can you just go live on land anywhere? Like literally, even your own land, and not pay anything to anybody. Can you do that?
No, not currently, no.
Right. So, and now if you're even going to procure food, you've got, I mean, that's coming from somewhere. Because if you're going to go even procure your own wild foods off land you own, which would be U.S. Forest Service land, which was set aside for the American people for the resource procurement. That's why it exists. Okay. But if you go in there, you still can't hunt without them telling you what you can hunt, how much you can hunt, and how much you can pay. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right. But what I am saying is a Bigfoot can go wherever the hell it wants. It can swim wherever the hell it wants. It can fish wherever the hell it wants. It can get as much game as it wants to. Now you tell me what the definition of human rights are and freedom. See, it's easy for a man that's a slave to not know he's a slave until he sees a guy outside the fence and starts to wonder, wait a second. What's he doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So
makes sense.
That's that right there. When it comes down to human rights and what you and I can go do, and the basis of where rights come from, that rights are dictated just because you exist. Okay. So imagine that question. That's bigger than anything socioeconomic, socio-religious. That's bigger than anything in the world.
Sure.
The discussion.
I never thought about it that way. From that angle. That it would change the whole dynamic of human rights.
Yeah, it's a unique way to look at it.
Well, it's not something I developed. It comes from when I go out in the hills. Like, I'm a lot more comfortable out there pretty much anywhere than I am sitting on a couch. Like, I'm just more comfortable. When I go out there, everything goes away. That's the way it should be. I don't feel like I'm something walking around looking around me in the woods. I feel like I'm something in the woods looking at what's walking around. So I feel very, very at home. And that's what hit me the hardest, was in being around them. Because it's like, okay, so let's say you were a slave and then free people walked by the chain link fence and you talked to them for a while. And then the moment they walk away. Okay, so that's what it feels like when the group goes off away from me, when I'm in with a group, daylight, and they're whistling and clicking and doing their thing and they're all around me and everything. When they get done with me and they move off, that's what it feels like. It feels like being left behind. Like, that's what we should be. That's it. You guys are happy, and there's nothing bullshit, stress, and all this control and all the crap that just trashes us as humans. There's none of that. Sure, they got concern, and they have to work the environment, and they have to work around people and all this, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And you feel that with them. You feel the rights they have that you don't have.
The natural rights, the God-given rights.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
That they're enjoying that we cannot. That makes a lot of sense.
I've got one question that comes up. I mean, I hear this every day. Why do these things avoid cameras? How do they avoid little cameras? And I just want to hear your answer, because I'm sure you get asked the same question.
Yeah. Well, so there's nothing real magical about it. So how would I say this? I can give an example. So a buddy of mine that was a mentor of mine named Jerry Gray, we lived out in a mine in Arizona in a place called Paducci Flats, and we were about an hour and a half from anywhere, like any normal dirt road. And so he had to drive about an hour and a half on this little mining 2-track, and then he would know 30 minutes before anyone came over the mountain. So, I mean, we're on the other side of a mountain as well, down in this deep canyon. You can't hear any cars. You can't nothing. But Jerry would know a half hour before anybody showed up that someone was coming out. And what that was is they were already on the road. We were the only thing on the road. So Jerry would just feel their intention. So people can believe one thing or another. It doesn't matter what you believe. Jerry could feel the intention was never wrong. Dogs know. They know when they know their master's coming home when they're still on the freeway, for God's sake. They're not hearing the car coming down the road. The guy be 30 minutes from home. He's still on the freeway somewhere with 500 other thousand cars in that, 3-mile stretch or whatever, and the dog still knows master's coming home. So it's that right there. So if we just take that right there and we throw that equation into all this, I think that just answers that question in itself,
Yeah. Yeah, the intention, the anticipation.
Yeah,
just
intuition.
Knowing. Yeah, the intuition of that device being there. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so if you go in your house and someone's been in your house, you may not know or even see anything weird or wrong, but you'll get a feeling somebody's been in your house.
Yeah.
If you go into a crowded room and somebody's eyeing you and putting a lot of attention and focus on you, you'll look at them and they'll be staring at you. Same thing. You go into their area, they know you're in the area. It's not anything that's magical or fucking nutty or anything like that. People do it all the time. If you hang out with enough natives, man, you'll get this because they are tuned. Most of them are tuned in, and the wilder the people are, the more tuned in they are.
Sure,
What was the thing about in all the old African safari movies? And they didn't just make the shit up. They got it because it's the way it was, and they wanted to give the flavor of what this was like to be out there in the movie. So the thing was that, we'd go in and, where's the tribe? Where's the tribe? Oh, they're here. That's what they're here. They're here. Yep. They'll show themselves when they want to. And then all of a sudden, and it happens to this day, even on research expeditions, you'll be sitting in camp and all of a sudden, one guy will just walk out of the bushes. Yeah. You'll spend 2 hours with him, and all of a sudden, half the tribe will walk out of the bushes. Yeah. And none of them ever knew any of them were there. It's the same thing. We look at everything from our living room point of view, and we don't really go to where it would be. So when someone goes into an area and installs a cam, they don't just leave their odor behind. They leave their essence of intrusion, their intent, and everything else behind. You'd have to fool the person hiding the camera that he didn't know he was hiding the camera in a weird way, if you can understand this, before the camera would be truly hidden. Because it's never hidden. Someone knows it's there. Even if it's just the guy who placed it there. So we pick up on these intuitions, and then we suddenly expect the Bigfoot's not going to have them. Well, it's because we're not really looking at them like they're a people. Another thing is, okay, so you can take a marble or anything else and put it out in nature, and every damn animal will see it. Like a big cat or whatever. It doesn't matter what you move. You move anything, a cat will see it. Same thing with a wolf. Not so much bear, but even though bears spot trail cameras left and right, you see them like deer spot trail cameras left and right. Why are we so surprised that this other animal isn't seeing the trail camera from outside of its 40 to 100 foot range? I mean, give me a break. They'd see a trail camera from 300 feet away just because it's hanging in a tree or it's on the ground. We have been pretty lucky and had a little bit of luck with trail cameras, at least in kind of fooling them a little bit. But then you're looking at the illuminator, and I hate to say it, people make a great big deal out of, can they see infrared light? But yet at the same time, they've gone and looked at 1 million security cameras, and they see the little ring of red lights around them. And they say, oh, the camera's on. That's not an indicator light. Those are the IR lights. You're seeing IR light. Yes, they can see it. You can see it. So I can see 850 nanometer game cam light, a broadcast on the ground. I can see it because we never use flashlights, right? So to think that they can't see that trigger and come on and stop immediately. Now, the lights or the trigger, it happens on almost all game cams outside the frame. Okay, because they want to trigger, they want the animal to come into frame. Yeah. So he's stopping as soon as it's triggering. He's never going to be in the frame. And so we had one throwing snowballs in the camera frame, off frame. So it obviously didn't know what it was. It saw the glow, stood off frame, and was chucking snowballs in front of the camera. And this is like 2 a.m. and, in the middle of absolute nowhere and everything, and, snow and all. We know it's not a person. But so it's really, we suppose all the time. So then we have to make up these crazy excuses because we can't figure out why they can do or can't do anything.
Yeah.
And now that's the reason I think we've been extremely successful, is because we don't look at it that way. I just don't look at it that way. I don't underestimate my query, for one. That's the biggest way to fail right there. And then for two, I don't go to the magic side. I fully understand all the paranormal aspect. I've been around spirits and entities, and I had my back broke by a ghost when I was a kid. I've been around a lot of crazy stuff. So I believe a lot of stuff. I also understand science and quantum physics, and I understand a lot of this. So, and it does go together. But to have to attribute a lot of the woo to the Bigfoot just to excuse what they're doing. And we've been around them enough. They don't need any of that to do these things. They can pull off everything without ever doing it. The fear, we broadcast something called pheromones as a reproductive hormone that attracts us. Well, males also put off what's called pheromones. So when you get angry, territorial, or anything like that, you put out a chemical called a pheromone. Okay, so that does the opposite of a pheromone. It creates fear and everything else. So in any lesser individual, subject, or species, they're going to be scared to hell as you. So you can imagine what a male Bigfoot's pheromones are like. So you don't even know you're being exposed to it, and you could be put into shock by such traumatic fear. So it's not out of the question. All the things that are happening, but the reasons for them.
Wow, man. Amazing stuff. I just looked at the time. Unfortunately, we're getting down there, right, Doug? I mean, we're almost done here. In fact, we're going over. And Robert, I got to say, it has just been amazing having you on. Love to have you back on. We're hardly touching anything.
Yeah, we
2 hours just flew right by just so quickly. Love to have you back on.
We did the skim. Yep, definitely got to have you back.
Oh, it'll be my pleasure, man. Just let me know, guys, anytime.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. Robert Kryder, everybody. I mean, what is your website, Robert? Really quickly for people to go to and check it out.
You can find us on the web on KryderExploration.com. And my last name, Kryder, is spelled Kryd, as in David, ER. On YouTube, we're KX space Kryder space Exploration. On Facebook, we've got a Bigfoot site that is KX space Cryptid -hominin research group -NM Bigfoot. And you can also find us just at our direct Kryder Exploration site on Facebook just by searching Kryder Exploration.
Yeah. And we do have your links up in Untold Radio.
Okay, thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah, check it out. Check the sites out. If you're already on Untold Radio AM, make sure you're clicking those links. And, of course, after the show, enjoy all that stuff. Again, it's been a real pleasure. Robert Kryder, everybody, the real deal. He is the man in the bush. He's the man uncovering the truth that might be inconvenient for some, but fascinating and something we all need to know. Until next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other, and just keep looking, man. History is all around us.
Hey everyone, it's Megan Trainor for Profile by Sanford. We're all working hard to balance our lives these days, and sometimes the toughest part is being the me I want to be. Profile's one-on-one coaching and customized nutrition plans will help you stay on track. Balancing a healthy lifestyle, losing weight, and understanding nutrition isn't easy, but Profile makes it simple. Now you can try 4 weeks of Profile for only $49. Find your plan at profileplan.com. That's profileplan.com.
Now that football season's here, it's time to put some serious thought into what you'll be ordering from Uber Eats. Whatever's on your game day menu this NFL season, Uber Eats has you covered. They'll deliver whatever you order quickly and just how you want it, so you can stay in the game. Tonight, I'll be eating Uber Eats, the official on-demand food delivery partner of the NFL. Uber Eats is bringing you game day deals all season. Order now,